So today we'll be doing this passage on of memes and magic. Deep in the labyrinthine tags of TikTok, a group of teenage occultists promised they could have the power to help you change your life. Manifesting influencers, as they have come to be known, promise the legion of viewers that with the right amount of focus, positive thinking, and desire, the universe will bend to their will. Most of these people end up doing what they say they are going to do and being who they are going to become. Insist one speaker on the mindset vibrations account. So these are examples of people who are in the manifesting space and just are promoting the idea of manifestation. So the idea claims that if you want something and you can focus your want and desire towards that item, the universe will bend to your will. It's not just TikTok. Throughout the wider wellness and spirituality subcultures of social media, manifesting the art, science, and magic of attracting positive energy into your life through internal focus, meditation, harnessing the energy to achieve mental results is part and parcel of well-regulated spiritual and personal life. It's as ubiquitous as yoga or meditation might have been decades ago. TikTok influencers and wellness gurus regularly encourage their followers to focus law of attraction style on desired life goals in order to bring them about in reality. So it's not just about TikTok and other social media platforms, it has been part of a greater lifestyle as well. It's possible, of course, to read manifesting as yet another vaguely spiritual wellness trend. Up there with sage cleansing, lighting votive candles with Ruth Bader Ginsburg's face on them. But to do so would be to ignore the increasingly visible intersection of occult and magical practices that and internet subcultures. As our technology has grown ever more powerful, the control over nature seems to be more absolute. The discursive subculture of internet has gotten well over ever more weird. So, mistaking or lumping the manifesting trend with other forms of like spiritual wellness trends like sage cleansing or like lighting these candles is not like it's very ignorant of us if we do that, right? Because it just ignores all the magical practices, all the intersection of occult practices and all the other internet subcultures. Sometimes it seems the whole internet is full of would-be magicians, witch talk and left occult phenomena, largely framed around reclaiming ancient matriarchal or indigenous practices in resistance of patriarchy. So the main motive sometimes is to fight against patriarchy and like the witch talk. Witch talk is like the name suggests witches, right? And this is a form of promoting matriarchy and fighting against current patriarchal society. Having popularized the esoteric among the young, largely progressive members of Gen Z, the meme magicians and cake worshippers, troll occultists, and 26th era alt right have given way to a generation of neo traditionalists drawn to reactionary coded esoteric figures like the Italian fascist mage Julius Evola. Even the firmly skeptical, such as the rationalist Silicon Valley based members of tech adjacent subcultures like effective altruism community, have gone a little woo. In their article for the New Atlantist, I chronicled the post-rationalist turn of those eager to blend their Bayesian theories with psychedelics and shadow work. As organized religion continues to decline in Western religious interest in spooky and spiritual has only increased. Today, witches may be the fastest growing religious group in the United States. So, among the Gen Z and the younger people and all this internet, like with the coming up of the internet, the traditional religions have faced a decline in the Western countries, right? And this kind of spiritual and fast moving, fast growing religious groups are the trend. Magic, of course, means a host of things to a plethora of people. So, a single word, different meaning to different people. The early 20th century anthropologist Edward Evan Pritchard used magic to describe the animistic religious sentiments of the Azand people, whom he deemed primitive. There is folk magic, popular variety of cultures in the past and present, local remedies. There is fantasy magic, like we see in Harry Potter. And there is also magic as an illusion, right? Like what we commonly see in magicians, like pulling rabbits out of hats and all those stuff. Like it refers to a series, but there is also something in history which is the Western esoteric tradition. It refers to a series of attempts to understand, harness, and understand the workings of otherwise unknowable universe for our personal desired ends. So the thing is, we like magicians tend to understand something or a system in a much deeper and greater way than the common people, right? And this specialized or like exclusive knowledge helps them to mold the system in their favor to manipulate people and all those stuff. But at its core, magic describes the process of manipulating the universe through uncommon knowledge, as I said, accessible to the learned or lucky few. The canny reader may note that magic, as I've defined it, sounds awful like technology given somewhat spiritualized in. So, like we can easily sense out the correlation with technology. This is no coincidence. The story of modernity, and particularly the story of quixotic founders of our early internet, is inextricable from the story of development and proliferation of the Western esoteric tradition and its transformation from essentially a niche cult of court scientists and civil servants into one of the influential yet least recognized forces acting in our contemporary life. Okay. From the Renaissance humanists onwards, nearly every major proponent of what we might loosely call modern, liberal, democratic, technologically saturated life was involved or is influenced by intellectual and philosophical movements. So there were different since Renaissance humanism. There were a lot of different movements based on these values, right? Modern, liberal, democratic, and all this stuff. It's like, and all of these movements, like most of these movements, were laden with occult promise. The promise that the human beings could take the place of God or replace God in certain form, which is very contrary to what the Bible suggests, right? Or like contrary to what typical traditional language religion suggests. So this differs from the Dan Brown vision of history, where shadowy cabal of Freemasons secretly moves the gears of history. I'm suggesting that once transgressive ideology underpinning the Western esoteric tradition, that our purpose as human is to become as close to the divine as possible, has an implicit assumption in modern life and an explicit in the current Silicon Valley culture. So the idea in these movements and the current Silicon Valley culture is that we need to make our own fate, be as close to the divine as possible, and be to attain complete control. Earlier this year, the tech titan and Braintree founder Brian Johnson, who made headlines for his multi-million-dollar quest for life extension, boasted on Twitter of his status as a messiah. So he said that I am competing for the status and the authority of Jesus, Satan, Buddha, and similar. So very bold claims. More and more of us, regardless of religious affiliation, see our relationship to nature and culture as like one of an entitled control. We should harness the powers of the universe to serve our own ends, and of course we are going to be functionally divine at some point. But when did this type of thinking start? So the author raises these questions and tries to bring out the history part of it in the next paragraphs. In the Renaissance, a controversial human scholar named Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, referred to as Pico only, penned his oration on the dignity of man, influenced by Orthodox Christianity, the Jewish Kabbalah, Arab philosophy, and the revival and reimagining of classical Greek thought known as Neoplatonism. Mirandola believed that defining characteristic of human was precisely that they are born to take the place of God. So the story he wrote goes as such: God is not something is not a being of unlimited power, decision, and all those stuff, right? So the story was God was creating universe, and it gave purpose and a flow of life to everything except humans. And when the time came for designing their life's purpose and everything, he was too tired and created an arbitrary being, right? And so humans are born without any purpose, and the meaning behind this is that we have our own freedom to understand or choose our own path. So that is the main thing that has been portrayed by the story. So the fatigued god has exhausted his supply of such seeds. He makes man without one, so without any purpose or without any such seeds. Or to put it more accurately, he makes man to determine his own. So that is the main background of the story. So where other creatures have a fixed nature, God tells Adam, you constrained by no laws, by your own free will determine your own nature. So his writing can be read as a particularly extreme example of Renaissance humanism as part of a general trend of early modern writing that emphasized human freedom and creative power. So in contrast to the interconnected social and natural order. But to understand Pico better, we must look at texts that influence him the most. A compendium of writings known as the Corpus Hermeticum or the Hermetica, pseudonymously written in the first few centuries CE, likely in the philosophical melting pot of Hellenistic Alexandria. The 17-part Corpus Hermeticum purports to be the writings of a mysterious demigod Hermes Trismegistus, associated with the Greek trickster messenger god Hermes and the Egyptian god of writing Thoth. Okay, so blending philosophy and scripture, natural science, and all these subjects, Hermetica represents a distinct vision of human transcendence. Transcendence meaning moving above, like human level or supposed base level. The mysterious Hermes Trismegistus is a self-made god, imaged with near control divine over both the scientific and magical worlds. In this case, the same. As Hermes learns in the book 11 of Hermetica, if then thou dost not make, so I'll just not read it and like explain it later. The highest power of human is to transcend humanity through knowledge and become creator. So it says that the highest purpose a human can have is to transcend normal or base level or normal human level through knowledge and take the place of God or the creator himself. The material decay stuff or our physical animal bodies exist only to be overcome via spirit linked with knowledge and will. So our material body is something just we need to overcome, and we can do this only through knowledge and will. Central to Hermetic thought was a tenet as above so below. Everything is connected from movement of stars to the planet's internal working and everything. Understanding this secret connection and harnessing them was the only way to become a successful magician. Central too was the occult nature of a mage knowledge. The mage saw things, connections that the ordinary and uninitiated people could not. So the entire idea was mage or magicians could have specialized knowledge on something and know the background workings of everything, and they can use that to control the universe to their will or take the place of gods or creators. Supposedly lost for centuries, the Corpus Hermeticum was rediscovered in the 15th century when another Renaissance humanist, Marsilio Ficino, discovered a manuscript in the library of his patron Cosimo de' Medici and translated into Latin. So the history is being said here. The humanistic vision, its transhumanistic vision actually, was enormously influential not on just Pico and Ficino but also Renaissance intellectual project as a whole. So the main idea again was that there was signs that humanity's destiny was to become God or replace God himself, bending technological power to accord with their own desires and wills. As the Hermetic influence Renaissance humanist Giordano Bruno put it, man's purpose is to fashion other natures, other courses and other orders so that he might in the end make himself God on earth. So same idea being repeated here through different historical generations and events. Scientific progress was thus bound up with spiritual development, a development predicated in opposition to the authoritarian Catholic Church. So the church preached otherwise, right? The church always believed in the existence of a superior God and like people should be ruled under them. But while this transhumanistic vision was completely against the Catholic Church. So for much of the Western religion history, the mythic figure of the would-be knower was rebellious against God as a cautionary tale. So obviously it went against the church and thus had rebellious notions. Hermetic ideas diffused across a range of movements in the early modern period. So different movements were there. For like the Rosicrucians, they were there. The English mathematician Robert Flood and Isaac Newton spent decades finding the philosopher's stone. Freemasonry and all these different movements were there, like Freemasons such as Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, as well as several signatories were blended in intricate ceremony with carefully crafted regalia as meticulous as any church's vestment. So the signature or the remaining of these occult and magic across various historical events and movements can be found through different timelines. It would be a mistake to think Hermeticism as a codified religion. So it's not exactly a codified religion because it is not very consistent across all the different movements. Like all the different movements have different rules, characteristics, ideas, and everything. They had each their own rites, ritual subgroups. nor was it a magic, nor was it the only magical system, right? Solomonic magic derived from other places. So it was not something very consistent across geography, across history, or across various movements. So what this movement shared was a faith in the human self-transcendence. So the main idea that they shared was that the human, human or any man would transcend above his own base level and would like take the place of God someday. And the people who could transcend this level were magicians, or like they understood the basic workings of nature or whatever it was, or any system better than the uninitiated, and so they could bend it to their own will. So in this early modern occultists were not unlike today's peddlers of meme magic, claiming a populist stance against the elite cathedrals of academic and journalistic establishment, affirming their esoteric idea of a lone genius capable of what the sheeple cannot. So the main marketing of today's like meme magicians and all these people are like claiming they can see further than the sheeple can. The sheeple in this case is the mass they are preaching to and the people they are talking to. So they kind of flex their like deeper vision to the people. Like they claim access to this understanding and forces, and they claim that they can like they can harness this understanding to change the universe at their will. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, transhumanistic magic began to focus less on knowledge of the world and more narrowly on the power and control of the mage himself. So the controversial diabolist Aleister Crowley Thelema and the New Thought tradition from the US, for example, focused on mastering one's internal physical energies. So, like the movement, or the idea changed from controlling worldly things or the worldly systems to controlling himself or the mage herself, like the inner physical things, right? So, what we want and how we focus on that energy of wanting doubles as the primary engine of reality, which of course only the most godlike among us can shape. Whether the creator god is absent, abdicated, or usurped, man's role remains the same, to take his place. Crowley's most famous maxim takes Pico's vision of self-fashioning self to its natural conclusion: "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of law." In what is part of Crowley's most powerful successor ideology, the chaos magic that grew out of 1970s London punk scene, and is also very like correlated with the internet culture, or like the starting point of the internet culture, heavily influenced by the writings of one-time Crowley acolyte Osman Spare. Chaos magic dispensed with hermetic associations, a lattice of meaningful that connected them together. Rather for the magicians, rather for chaos magicians, meaning was not something to be discovered but decided. The idea was reality is whatever we think it to be, right? What the masses think it to be. So if the majority of people think one way on something, that is the correct way, or I guess validity is generated by the majority, right? So that's the main idea here. And if you can control the ideas or perception of people, then you can control what reality actually is. So a different kind of take on what like controlling the system was. The major tenet of traditionalism, that there was a secret initiatory truth underpinning all major world religions, collapsed into nihilism. So the major tenet was nihilism. The idea was there is no such thing called truth is all. Truth is what majority of people believe it to be. There is nothing called absolute truth. So as the occult historian Gary Lachman writes in Darkstar Rising, his account of magical tendencies with modern internet culture, for chaos magic, the idea of truth or facts is anathema. Whoever shapes the perception of others is practicing magic. So magic is what you magic is kind of marketing, in the sense like you make people believe stuff, and that is how you control reality. Enter the internet pioneers steeped in mid-20th century counterculture. The futurists, the technologists, inventors who would come to shape Silicon Valley culture with their hermetic forebears, a optimistic vision of human self-transcendence through technology. Freed of biological and geographical constraints and of repressing social expectations, we could make a cyberspace of new libertarian Jerusalem. As early as the 1960s, the futurist Stewart Brand, the publisher of hippie counterculture Bible, the whole earth category, rhapsody about how in the modern world the realm of intimate personal power is developing, the power of the individual to conduct his own education, find his own inspiration, shape his own environment, concluding that we are as gods and we might as well get good at it. Early cyber enthusiasts and futurists, more than a few of whom, from Terence McKenna to Robert Anton Wilson, dabbled in the occult, mystic, or magical practices, saw in the prospect of cyberspace a new spiritual terrain for self-divinization. Freed of bodily constraints and geographic limitations, the internet could help us last achieve the magical dream of transcendence. So, again, the cyberspace is something where we are not attached to this material body, right? So there is something like our existence in internet or the cyberspace is just our intellect, wit, experiences embodied. So whatever we are not held back by anything. So that is the main space we can achieve transcendence. So that's the main idea portrayed here. In an article for the Wired magazine, Eric Davis chronicled one ritual performed by Mark Pacey, the founder of early programming language VRML. During an event, there was equal parts techno-pagan ritual scientific summit. So the ritual was a four personal computers used as watchtowers with a graphical browser depicted a ritual circle, pentagrams, and all. An observer chanted, "May the astral plane be reborn in cyberspace." Like the idea which I just shared, like cyberspace is the space where we are not held back by the material body, right? The absence of our physical bodies and social restriction, we could exist solely as manifestation of our own will. The internet became a gathering space for waves and magically inclined cybernauts, technopagans, discordians, and all these people could find each other in the cyberspace, showing up the notion of digital life itself as a presage to the magicians is eschatological dream of a place where human creativity could shape the landscape of the world. So we are not held back by any constraints, and like human creativity can directly change the landscape of the world. Like transcendence is possible much easier than the real world. The extropian transhumanist Max Moore held the internet as an evolutionary portal. We can reconstitute ourselves physically, genetically, neurologically, he wrote. That's because we are not held by the material body. The British philosopher Nicholas, or these are the explanation of various people, various internet philosophers, internet researchers, and other philosophers as another authoritative figures on this idea of like achieving transcendence in the cyberspace. Like it would accelerate capitalism, technological progress, precipitate civilization collapse that would hasten the post-apocalyptic world to come. Then like later waves of transhumanists included philosopher David Pearce, World Transhumanist Association openly pursued eternal life. So all this kind of stuff through which we want to take the place of our creator, God, or whatever the eternal is, like it's seemingly like the cyberspace is opening up the ideas of opening up or inculcating or like promoting cultivation of these ideas, right? Like we need to, like Pierce said that we need to rewrite our bug ridden genetic code and become godlike. So these ideas are being entertained in the cyberspace. The internet has absorbed some of its techno-utopian luminaries' foundational ideas to the extent that they are practically built in. In some ways, it provides us with nothing more or less than magical canvas. So the cyberspace is just a magical canvas that we can do anything we want, portray ourselves however we want. In this shared collective hallucination, because it's kind of like metaphorically it's kind of an illusion from the real world, right? It's just a different world we have created on our own. We can doll ideal avatars, create unethered social and erotic relationships, curate our self-image, and in turn allow mystical algorithms to present us with the landscape. Okay. In the modern interest, desire is the secret undercurrent shaping our new reality. So in the modern internet or the cyberspace, desire is everything. Like capturing human desires is what grants power here, right? Like you can get famous on social media for creating posts. Like TikTok is such a great example for this, like where dopamine hit or smaller pieces of content can like trigger your desire to be entertained for just a short period of time and gain immense popularity. Like clever marketing in the form of e-commerce websites can like get you to spend money, and all these tactics are based on the human emotion, that is desire. So they are like we agree to sell parts of ourselves, that is our eyeballs. Memes in this telling have become the modern interpretation of magician's sigil, a magical image empowered to convey magician's desired energy. Charged with collective energy of subsequent retweet or repost, memes seep into our unconscious and influence. So they have a lasting effect on our subconscious and influence what we think, do. So we are being controlled. That is the main thing, and we are being controlled by these mages, magicians who like create all this content and all this stuff to basically control us. So and by channeling our desire, rearranging our interior landscape, the digital magi have the very power of over us. So Crowley and the like fascinated by Crowley and the chaos magician. So this just shows a dichotomy of the people in the cyber landscape. Like one are already considered to be transcended, or the higher mages who have understood how everything works and have entrapped us in this, like entrapped us, right? And they can control what we think, what we do through all these various tactics. But has the internet betrayed the more idealistic principles of its early engineers, for whom human transcendence was a more collective proposition? Has the power of the few able to look behind the curtain replaced the goal of shared human liberation? Perhaps to a degree, but even more seemingly humanistic vision of intellectual culture, we found a chilling nihilism. A sense that magic is fundamentally about countering other people's perception. Words have everything here, everything there under at the same time, little bits of light, pure ideas. So this, put another way, digital reality takes the magical principles of energy manipulation as its architecture. So again, the same ideas being repeated. So whatever you can make people understand or convince is what the reality is. We are caught up in the cult of Hermes, Prometheus, Lucifer, in which the secret truth revealed by transition is that the truth is only ever a fiction of fools. So such a great depiction of what is being tried to say. Like if truth is everything, the majority makes out to it be, or a fiction of fools. Reality is only ever what you can make people believe. Our social life, sexual life, professional successes are all mediated in part or in full by a disembodied landscape that quite literally runs on the engine of desire. The hyper-capitalist attention economy, which invites us to post pictures of for likes, all the same stuff. It's a desire. So everything runs on desire, as mentioned earlier. That makes reality real. It's hardly surprising that the new spiritual movements have cropped up in this postmodern landscape, from left-coded practices for witch talk, reanimating esoteric ideas of self-divinization, harnessing energy to manifest reality by attending to and valorizing our own desires. They insist that what we want makes us who we are. So there is kind of an illusion, like like mages and other people control who we are, but they in turn control, like provide a idea or like manipulate us through providing the idea that we are in control of who we are. So it's kind of an illusion we are in, like following them. So that is the idea being portrayed here. As such, modern internet culture seems to be indebted to Crowley's nihilism than to the promise of Hermes' Trismegistus. I'm sorry. Widespread disinformation, engagement farming, meme culture, and all this stuff attempts to capturing and shaping our attention like magic spells of their own, warping our perceptions to reflect the perceptions of those who wield the memes. So we are being influenced by all this internet stuff. You might say that meme magicians have won. They revealed at last dark heart at the center of Pico's seemingly optimistic vision of humanity, that when we fashion ourselves according to our desire, it is because there is nothing real or meaningful in this world except the desire. So another nihilistic view that there is nothing real or meaningful to be achieved except those desires. Like maybe like the idea of transcendence itself, like say like taking the place of God or our creator is also being fueled by these desires. So and there is also a difference like of ideas being created here. Like the idea here is created like people who have who are in the place of influencing the masses have used it to their own benefit and seemingly harmed the people who can't, right? So they are not using it for overall benefit or not to gain the position of creators. They are just using it for like harming others and getting their own benefit. So that is like kind of a different idea of what was trying to be said earlier. Scottish witches of the 18th century has a word for this: glamour. 2019, the concept of glamour magic was sufficiently mainstream for Teen Vogue to publish a guide to practice extolling teenage girls to be better you. But in 2023, we are all doing glamour magic, intentionally or not. Our participation in the spiritualized space of the internet, where energy, intention, and vibes are indistinguishable from the memes of bots of Twitter's deepfakes, etc., has made would-be magicians of magicians of us all in the service of becoming our best selves. Same idea. As more and more of our online lives play out on platforms owned by, controlled by billionaires conversing of their divinity, so clear hierarchy has been shown that people are trying to be over others, like understanding better, trying to influence. Like these billionaires at the ones who are influencing our thoughts and shaping what reality is. We may find ourselves less magicians than fodder to the other magicians' will. So we can understand that. More troublingly, many of us don't seem to mind. We keep pressing, playing, liking, etc. It's cloudly devotee. I think this is because we are, after all, sheeple. We lack the major-like temperament to determine our own destiny. So, we the worrying thing, according to the author, is that we like being under the illusion that we are being controlled, and we don't care about it. Like we are under the illusion that we can control, but it's actually not the case. We can't actually control, and we do not seem to do anything about it. We seem to carry on with our lives. A more charitable read is that desire itself is asymptotic, it's never fully fulfilled. Longing for what we cannot have, for being more than we are, is an endemic to the human condition as dead. So, another way of desire is being portrayed like the people who are desiring power will always desire that there is no end to desire. The layer of the internet lies in the promise that this click, this article, etc. Will be the final consummation we crave. So we can take this in two ways, like we carry on looking at all the internet content, memes, reels, whatever, because we desire for the entertainment, and we think like this is the last one I'm gonna see, but it's not the case. Like design is never going to end. And as far for the influencers and who people influence reality, I mean our thought and thereby reality, there is also a desire in them to shape reality and to bend universe to their own will, like in their terms. And so their desires do not end as well, right? They try to influence us, do all different kinds of stuff, and like this is an eternal, like this is an ongoing cycle we are a part of. We will be seen, paid attention to, and perhaps even loved in just the way we wish to be. It's a promise as palpable as Eve's apple. So a great passage on like how on memes magic, the we have gone through entire history of what magic and this occult of manifestation, like the ideas of manifestation have come through what influencers and influencing already does. So yeah, overall a great passage.